You're watching DCTV Denton Community Television.
Follow your dreams, and they say, do what you want.
Hi, how are you doing? Thanks for watching. We appreciate it, and I'm glad to be here today. And my special guest today is Thad Bonduris. Thad, I appreciate you coming down and
Mike, my pleasure.
Visiting with us. And so you've certainly been involved with music for a long time, and that's a big part of your life every day, I guess. And
yes, for some reason people keep me in here. They haven't run me off the road, so to speak, but I feel very privileged that as great a musical town as Denton is, that a lot of the great people around here still want to do things with me. So,
yeah.
So I guess I'm not ready for the glue factory quite yet.
Not yet.
But,
well, y'all have done a lot of great things, and we were just now talking about, how do you say it?
It was called Fanatics back in the late 80s, all the way through about the late 90s actually. I had the same personnel. It was a cover band, a Dallas area cover band, and we did all the West End clubs. We had done Memphis once or twice. Addison. We had, and it just sort of ran its course. But every once in a while, I will still get calls for certain events. I mean, I don't try to book it in clubs anymore. I stopped doing that a long time ago. And because of the time that it was around, you're going to hear mostly pretty classic rock covers. And special events will include things like Twilight tunes. We've been called to do, they used to have the lunchtime concerts on the square. Hank here from the athletic department has called us numerous times to do the 4th of July. We had done that, and
y'all did that last year, didn't you?
No, it's been a couple of years.
They had a new female vocalist from Nashville or something that came. Y'all
one time, during one of those summers, it was his niece, Hank's niece, that he brought in from Nashville. And we put together a show of her stuff, and we did a quick pilot preview of it at Dan's at Happy Hour, Dan's Silverleaf, and it went real well, and we were ready to do the show the next day, and she did very well. I mean, Janny was her name, and she was a bit pregnant and still wound putting up a good show, show there. But things like that. Joe Fritz calls us to do Elvis on the Square. This is going to be the 3rd year we're going to do this.
Really?
Yes, on May 11th.
It draws a lot of people. People love that music.
It does. It's the Kiwanis, and it's a great event for them, and they raise a lot of money.
A lot of fun for everybody.
Oh, it's very, very family friendly. Yes, and it's a fun event. Joe does it upright with the Secret Service guys and the whole bit. Yeah.
So you got started kind of early in life, I guess. You just had talent naturally as a kid, and
well, I don't know how much talent I had, but I had a lot of stubborn desire.
Yeah, stubborn desire.
and I was very determined, and I was pretty much self-taught. As a matter of fact, for the last 20 years, even though I've been teaching for well over 30 years, taught many generations of players, about the last 20 years, I've been wanting a teacher for me.
Yeah.
I never really had one, so to speak. And but no, I got my start at of course, my age group, the British invasion, led me to listening to the radio, and in listening to AM radio formats back then, you got exposed to a lot more styles. It wasn't like it was by the time the 70s had come around, where you had FM rock stations and you had FM country stations. The AM mainstream song lists, playlists that they had, I mean, was anything from Buck Owens to Burt Camford Orchestra to the Beatles to
Yeah.
a lot of different variety, and I got to where I was loving almost all of it, most of it, and it led me to listening to a lot of different styles of music. And as I was learning to play and teaching myself how to play, I wanted to try to play every one of those styles of music that I possibly could figure out how to play.
What kinds of guitars did you play as a kid?
Well, I started out being a frontman rhythm guitar singer. Then, after about doing that for about 4 years, I decided, gosh, why do I always have to find somebody that plays good lead guitar? So I taught myself, within about 2 years, I was playing better than the guys I used to
Yeah.
admire. So, that's when I started working, I guess you'd say, semi-professionally. I mean, I was gradually leaving the home and the comforts of the home I grew up in, and I quit my job at Orange Julius because I made more in 2 nights playing at a military base than I could have in 2 weeks. And I said, okay, that's it.
Was that San Antonio area?
San Antonio area. And
Yeah.
it was during the height of the Vietnam War.
Oh, really?
And those military bases, they kept you busy, and they were a good training ground for me. I managed to bypass having to get into the military because of they'd ended the draft and all that sort of stuff. So I sort of lucked out there, and they had that lottery, and my number was really high.
Yeah.
But nonetheless, I was playing the military bases, and we would go play for all the basics that had just gotten their long hair shorn off, and at Skylark Hall in the afternoon, and they would want to hear rock and roll, the James Gang and Led Zeppelin and stuff, and we'd play that, and the same band would go take a shower and go to the NCO club that night and play Cherry Pink.
Yeah, ballroom type.
And Satin Doll and stuff like that, and Proud Mary when they really got going. And but that was a lot of fun because I there again had to play a lot of different musical styles. And
Yeah.
after doing that for a couple of years, I really wanted to get educated. I'd figure it out about it enough on my own as I possibly could. One of my last semesters of school there, I did actually take my first lessons I took were classical guitar lessons with David Underwood, who is still down there. And he not only got me started playing that, but he turned me on to John McLaughlin and Miles Davis and that sort of stuff, and I started listening to that, and I would go, okay. And I started to get there were rumors of a place called North Texas State University down there, and there were rumors that they actually allowed guitars somewhere in the music department. And that was about the size of the guitar department then. They kind of allowed a couple in there.
Yeah.
And I spent my 5 years there taking in what I could. Luckily, they'd gotten Jack Peterson by that time. He was great.
Really?
Had classes with him and master classes, but never had any private lessons. It would have been nice. They, some reason, wouldn't let him do that.
Yeah.
And I could have stayed in school. I was loving it, loving being around, but I needed to start working and
Yeah.
and supporting a family and and paying for a house. So I beefed up my teaching numbers, which started growing on their own accord. I had only started teaching while I was going to school there part-time. By the time that music store closed, I was the only one in that music store that was making money. I was making more than the owner was making. And as it closed, I had to find other locations. And anyway, I beefed up my numbers, and I started grabbing every gig I possibly could, and wound up becoming a band leader, and kept the calendar pretty booked for about 20 years, various incarnations. The last second to last incarnation, I kept the same personnel together for 9 years.
That's a long time.
Well, yeah, and the reason I kept them is because I made sure that the grass was never greener on the other side.
Yeah.
Because they, you know, if somebody is keeping me working, and I'm not going to cancel out on them on a Saturday night if I can go make $50 more just that one night. Got to look at the whole big picture, and that's what they were looking at.
Well, that's right. Yeah.
And you know that all things like that make their course. So Fanatics was originally spelled Fanatix.
Oh, really? Yeah.
Originally.
Yeah.
But by the time there was a web and an internet, I was at a friend's house one time and he typed in that name and two things popped up. An all-female bluegrass gospel group and a porn website. I said, got to change that name or something, and got an idea to change it to spell it, and it was a good turn for the name. I should have had that name to begin with. I never thought of that name. I won't take credit for that.
ADDIX.
Yeah, I never even wanted that name, but that's a story in itself.
And then the Fabulous Echoes.
That was a predecessor to that.
Oh, predecessor, yeah.
Yes, because we had, that's another story. We had played the Summit Hotel, which is now bygone, but it had one of Dallas's top showrooms at the time.
Really?
And we played there every Sunday night with an entertainer named Al Nelson, who is still around, who does Roy Orbison. You would think it's Roy. He does them to a T. But we would go there and play 50s and 60s music. And that gig lasted for about 5 years.
Really?
And it sort of formed the foundation from which Fanatics sprang. You know, we wanted to go out there and do the contemporary 80s stuff at the time and things.
Well, then the Not So Hot Club,
That's like a light year later.
Yeah, a light year later.
Yeah. What happened there was, like I've told you the story of the Fanatics. After that, I pretty much, when that band had fizzled out, and I'd done one last incarnation of it for the clubs, I kind of went to just playing solo restaurant gigs for a while, just private parties, and basically by the time the year 2000 came around, I pretty much stopped trying to hustle any gigs. I've kept busy enough with just phone calls, as busy as I wanted to be, because, you know, after 25 years or so, and you finally get a Friday night off and see what the rest of the world does on a Friday or Saturday, go to a movie and stuff like that, you know.
No amps to load. And
No amps to load, not having to worry about where you're parking and all that. I was always driving to Dallas and Fort Worth during those years to work on the weekends, the whole Metroplex area outside of Denton. But
the Gypsy Swing, I thought that was kind of an interesting, y'all wanted to pay tribute to that movement that came out of France. That was the 30s, or?
It was the 30s and 40s.
Yeah.
Django Reinhardt was very much in his,
right before World War II, I guess.
Yes.
Yeah.
But he had escaped to England.
Oh, really?
With Stefan Grappelli, the violinist, but then decided he was going to go back to France, because for some reason he was able to work in Nazi-occupied France. Stefan Grappelli decided to stay in England, and he was working with George Shearing and different people.
Oh, really?
At that time. And yes, Andy Cooper had thought of this back. I have set lists that go back to about 2004. So we're trying to pinpoint the exact date of Not So Hot Club, and some people have been helping me, and I've kept records, fortunately, and I think it was somewhere around the beginning of 2004. So next year, if we're still around, it'll be 10 years.
10 years.
Yeah, and it was he wanted to pay homage to the acoustic gypsy style swing music, which Django did all the popular tunes of the time. There were a lot of, he was a walking encyclopedia of tunes.
Yeah.
He knew Dixieland tunes. He recorded so many tunes, but if he didn't, I can guarantee you he probably played it if it was written before 1953 when he died.
Now, Dixieland tunes, is that strictly an American kind of music?
Yeah.
American
The
genre.
early jazz.
Early
tunes.
jazz.
Early and into the swing era. He did a lot of swing tunes too.
Yeah.
And the thing about the Not So Hot Club was that by playing those tunes, they have very danceable tempos, and it's more accessible to your audience, and a lot of people like to dance to it. And Andy really did a great job of promoting it, and he was very enthusiastic about it. And the only time we have not had that room packed since 2004 was when he went under the knife at the hospital. He said, "I'm not going to be there." Nobody showed up. But from that point on, people have been supportive about keeping his brainchild, his baby alive, so to speak. I've been was kind of quickly appointed leader.
Yeah, the responsibilities went to your shoulders.
Yeah. You know, everybody's looking at it around each other, going, "Who's responsible around here?" So that's kind of how that happened. So I've done my best to, as I'm juggling other things in my life, to keep it going and keep the music fresh. And it's such a great bunch of players. By the time 2011 had come, when Andy had to stop, the level of players that had gotten drawn into the Not So Hot Club was just astounding. And it's great to work with them. I mean, they are players as old as me and very young players as well. And and Andy did a lot to bring a lot of these younger players to the forefront that, you know, might not have gotten such prominence so quickly.
And you've done a lot over the years. You felt compelled to help others to teach and to share what you've been able to do.
Absolutely. On my website, I do have some testimonials from people that have wound up playing professionally and done some really good things. And I'm enjoying what I'm doing here with all these different projects that I'm presently doing.
And you have a staff of some of the best musicians in the area to teachers for various specialties.
Yes. Yes. Mm-hmm. I say, come take jazz lessons from jazz legends.
Yeah.
Because
nothing wrong with that.
Because they are, and I still have quite a teaching load, but I'm trying to expand it to where, and we have bands perform, student bands that we've put together, but I'm trying to expand it to where there are more jazz groups, eventually getting a guitar ensemble.
Really?
Going there. And we have a fellow teaching recording workshops now.
Oh, really?
So I'm wanting, and another fellow is going to teach songwriting workshops. I want to integrate the learning an instrument or to sing or both, songwriting, recording facilities. The recording facilities are open to the public to come and record, but I am not out there trying to compete with the studios in town because we would have limited time because it's mostly a teaching area, but it is available, but it's mostly for to help the people that are learning.
Yeah, for their benefit.
Right, but we have had a couple of prominent bands coming in there and recording. So trying to expand that business in that direction as well.
And so we're going to show some videos too, and we're going to pull up a couple of the Not So Hot Club performances there. Is it the Kessler? One of
them was at the Kessler. It was the last big show Andy did before.
About a month before his situation.
Situation there. He had double bypass surgery, and while he was recovering from it at night, he had a stroke.
The next day or something.
Overnight.
Overnight, yeah.
And he's lost most of his senses in the left side, but it's coming back, and he's making a miraculous recovery, enough to where he's able to get up and play Mr. Joe and Friends goes on before Not So Hot Club. And Andy has been coming, setting up his keyboard and playing one-handed piano with Mr. Joe, and you can hear those old Andy clarinet licks coming out of that piano.
That's good.
Yeah, so
I saw him over the weekend. He gets out and goes to events.
He does. He's been. He had also helped start the Vintage Jazz Society of Denton,
really?
which again, who feels like leading? Oh, okay. But Andy has started making it to a couple of those meetings too, so it's great to see him get up and getting around. Like I said, he's been making a miraculous recovery. One of the last appearances he made at Banter, he got up and walked across the room with his cane, which was, compared to just a couple of months before that, oh, it's amazing. So
that's great.
We're looking at him just keeping on recovering.
He's a strong person.
He really is. He is. Yes.
Well, I know I've enjoyed the Not So Hot Club so much every time I've been there to see you guys at Banter, and I think I've seen y'all on the square too. I noticed you also have worked with George Strait and Ray Price, like
oh,
session
that was
work.
a long time ago.
Yeah.
I was a part of. I was a lot of musicians say I'm an X-ray, so I'm an X-ray.
Yeah.
I was. It was a long time ago, and I'm almost ashamed to say what year it was. But I was on the road for a month. Being on the road with a couple of fairly newborn twin girls at the time, I felt like I needed to get back home. But when we were in San Diego, we picked up two entertainers on the bus to help Ray with his show. One of them was Vern Gosdin, the other one was George Strait. I'd never heard of either of these guys. A month after I got off that tour, I noticed they both had singles on Billboard. I think that was right before George's first big single.
Really?
Yeah, it was nice working with those gentlemen as well. It was very, very. Sadly, Vern Gosdin, I understand, passed away.
Really?
Yeah, not too long ago.
I've heard of him.
Yeah.
I'm not familiar.
He had a few mainstream hits on country radio. There were New Cut Road was one of them I can remember. Also, Ray's band leader, Blondie Calderon, that he had for decades, from Uvalde. He and I got along great. He had passed away too. He was a great jazz pianist, but he was the band leader and kept us, all us boys in line.
Yeah, yeah. And Steve Jackson with acoustic distortion, we were listening to some of that earlier.
Yes, Steve is a local songwriter out of Dallas, and I've been working with him the last couple of years. He hosts Songwriters Forum open mic night every Tuesday.
Oh, really?
At Opening Bell, which is on South Lamar in Dallas. And he, too, has the opportunity, like me, to meet a lot of young, talented people and nurture them along the way. And
well, what about older people who've been like in other fields and then, want to play music again?
Well, it's funny that I wound up doing my graduate thesis work on musically educating adults because I do tend to get some of them, and I have through the years, and I think I was pretty good at it because all the stuff there's very little research on it, but everything I was able to find, it seemed like I was doing the right thing. This kind of honed my skills at it, doing all that, getting my master's, it honed my whole teaching skills, I think, sharper than they were. Once you read it, articulate it, it brings it into light. But I do have a lot of people, pilots, dentists, attorneys, judges, that have started anywhere from the age 35 to age 70. And it's like anything else, like me. I was stubborn and persistent enough to do it. Mm-hmm. So if they're stubborn and persistent enough, they can get to a certain level where they're really enjoying it. And about the biggest comment I hear from all of them is, I went in there to practice for a few minutes the other night. Before I knew it, I came out, an hour and a half had gone by, or 2 hours had gone by. Mm-hmm. So that's a good thing because they're getting lost in it, and it's a great diversion for a lot of people. And like I said, some of them get pretty good at it.
That's true.
Some of them will get to where they're writing songs even. And one fellow that started when he was in his early 70s and took lessons until his health wouldn't allow him to anymore. Really? And he left us now. But he left me with a little bit of a legacy because he was wanting he would transcribe a lot of the sheet music I would give him. He was learning, he was fascinated with guitar tablature. So, and I have a lot of his stuff still on file that I call my more advanced tablature tunes. If you're familiar with tablature, it looks like musical notation with the rhythms and everything, and it's just guitar specific.
Yeah.
Instead of note heads, you have numbers for frets. But it can be turned into a real musically intuitive medium that is a good stepping stone to reading real music. And like I said, a lot of them stay there, but at least they have something other than clay tablets to notate ideas of some kind.
Yeah.
And but it is very gratifying to see people come away with something that enriches their lives.
For sure. Well, you do that a lot. That's what you do every day of the week, I guess, is help people become better musicians if they, want to buckle down and just take some lessons and
right
and work toward another level and things like that.
And I have other teachers now to help me do that because I'm getting extremely busy trying to run that place. And I tell people since my business has expanded physically, space-wise, it's like I've been feeding this big horse.
Yeah.
But I had to expand my physical space. But not only was real estate reasons, but for reasons that I needed that space to putting these bands together and having other teachers, because I taught nearly the same number of teachers, same number of students that me and all my teachers are teaching together.
Yeah.
By myself there for a few short years in the late 90s, and there's just no way I could even come close to teaching those numbers anymore, and being able to run a business and being able to make sure everyone is being taken care of. And I think it spreads myself a little less thin on the students because I'm able to give them other teachers that might specialize in something that I don't specialize in too much, and or that don't have that many students that are not as burned out as I can get, maybe possibly, but I'm not burned out anymore teaching like I was at one time. So it's a relief, but like I said, it's a business that I have to.
I'm sure
I have to be there every day.
Yeah, I'm sure it keeps you busy, and I appreciate you coming down today to share some things with us.
My pleasure.
And y'all be sure and check out Thad Bonduris on the internet and find out more about the things that he and his folks are involved with. And thanks so much for watching. Thank you, Thad, for being here.
Follow your dreams, and they say, do what you want, and money will come. Lots of